We would like to welcome you all to this press conference that, as you know, is for the film, the Spanish film, El Autor, The Motive, which was projected this morning and this evening in the official section of the San Sebastian Film Festival. To present the film and the press conference, we have the director, Manuel Martín Cuenca, Javier Gutiérrez, the actors Javier Gutiérrez, María León, Adriana Paz, and Adelfa Calvo, José Nola and Jaime Ortiz, the producers, the composer, José Luis Perales, and co-scriptwriter of the film, Alejandro Hernández, and we also have the presence of the author of the novel on which the film is based, Javier Cercas. Any of them, of course, are prepared to answer the questions you may deem to ask. And I'm sure there are many. Let's commence. Hi, a question for Manuel. I would like to ask you about the humor in the film, because it's a novelty. As the film's very cruel and very uncomfortable, which reinforces how pathetic the character is and makes it feel uncomfortable, but it works marvelously in the film. I would like to ask you about that, the way you used humor, because humor has almost such a horrible resulting. You've seen humor in this film, did you? It's a drama. No, well, the intention is not to be humoristic, really. It's not a comedy. I don't believe it's a comedy at all. But what does exist is the intention that comes from the essence of the novel. And for me and for Alejandro, when we wrote the script, was a very important starting point, which was the idea of being very ironic about something that on the one hand we believe to be very serious, because that's basically what we work upon, that's our job, but on the other hand we didn't think that, we thought we'd have to laugh at ourselves as well. In this film, what I've done basically and essentially, obviously for me, it's a satire, it's an exaggeration, but like all types of satire, it has a version of, it shows a version of reality. So therefore what I've done is to laugh at myself, to laugh at what we do, because quite probably we are much more naive than what we believe sometimes. This idea of doing great films and transcendent films and great novels, write great novels, well, perhaps we're being a bit ridiculous or being imbeciles. Okay, thank you very much. I would like to ask to the director and also the author of the books, Javier Cercas, and another one for Javier Gutiérrez. The director and the author, I would like to ask you, for us in general as audience and readers of books, what do you think we like the best? Do we like to feel that we're being fooled, or to identify realities in what we see and what we read? And for Javier Gutiérrez, when you worked upon your character, or when you read the script for the first time, and then you developed and studied and documented yourself, what did you feel with the character? Because I've seen different phases as being a spectator. You see him that he's a native loser. Everything that happens to him is really bad. Then we feel happy with him. We're very happy because he has a victory all of a sudden. And then we hate him because you were doing a really good job. You were doing really well there. Why do you? And it's a comedy. Why did you tell us that you hated him in the end? Well, the author and director, Javier, please. Well, I'm not too sure. Each spectator or reader sees different things. A film, just like in a novel, it's like a score, and everyone interprets it the way they want. Each person in the audience, and interprets it as they want. That's the magic of cinema and of novels. I'm not too sure. I can't really say much more about, but I feel I'm intruding here because I'm an intruder, because I'm totally displaced, because the only thing was just to give him a score that Manuel interprets in his own way, which is what he had to do. No, don't feel that you're an intruder here, not at all. No. As regards your question, I believe that quite normally the audience, the spectator likes what we see, we like essentially, and that it says that that people tell us that we're right. And nevertheless, when people don't tell us we're right, at the end of the day, that's what we learn the most. When someone tells us, hey, or questions us. So therefore, in that fight between giving the critics and the audience, telling them they're right, and not only questioning the critics and the audience, that's where I try to move. And that's where I try to play my, and do my work as a director, yes. I think we actors, we shouldn't judge the characters, but we should defend them, and I'm completely against things that have been told to me or that we've listened to vis-a-vis Alvaro's character, that he's a psychopath, that he's naive, he's a manipulator. Like all creator, he's obsessive, and that obsession takes him to unsuspected limits. But I believe that he's a great character, And when working upon the character, well, not only myself, but I think that the rest of the cast, we have got in the hands, for me, the best director of actors that exists in Spanish cinema at present, and that's a privilege for us. And if on top of that you've got a good script and a good character, you accompany that with the wise hand that Manuel Martín Cueca has, the job is almost completed. First of all, congratulations to the entire cast and the crew. Congratulations to the director and the actors. I think that it's an example of a good cinema adaptation. Why? Well, because the novel is very literary and the film uses elements which are highly cinematographic. Congratulations to Adelpha. I think she's a revelation to the great audience because the way she portrays a role, and congratulations to the soul of the Perales gives to in the soundtrack to the film. I would like to ask the director whether you wanted to use the oniric element that appears in Cerca's novel, which is very important in the novel, and I'm not too sure whether you took it out from the initially when you started to write the script, or did you wanted to stick to reality as the novel always says as well. Well, thank you very much for your very kind words on behalf of the entire cast and crew. An adaptation of a novel, I think that I would like to ask Alejandro to say a few words as well, because we always worked very close together in a special way. For me, it's almost an inspiration, a novel that I read and I said, well, this can be a film that I might direct. That's an experience in itself. Literature for me is an experience in itself, an experience that moves me emotionally, and sometimes not much, but when it moves me, it hits me like as if I went on a journey and I lived through something very important. This is what happened to the novel. I thought it was an issue that Javier dealt with, which is very serious, that made me, it's as if that it was able to move me in my weak spot, but with irony at the same time. And I thought that was a masterful way of touching this issue, to being ironic upon talking ironically about what we do. And essentially what I was left with was the feeling that I felt the first time I read the novel. And as it's a novel, which is a short novel, it's not a very long novel, I remember I read it in one go. And I closed it, I laughed to myself, and I said, there's a film in this. And then I read it again, and that is to say, I showed it to Alejandro, we talked about the novel, we talked about the possibility of adapting, I read it the second time. And then as of there, that second time I read it, I started to work like when we work on a script, that is to say, we respected the essence of the novel, we stayed with the core of what the novel talks about, but obviously we have to make it our own, we have to make a journey with that story that belongs to the author, and that story has to affect you and move you. I don't remember very well, and excuse me, I read the novel twice and I'm not read it again. When I wrote the script, I didn't read the novel because I didn't do it. In Cannibal, for example, was a novel upon which Cannibal was inspired, because otherwise it turns upon, you've got to respect the novel as if it were the Bible. You've got to let's not betray the novel. I think that we have to betray the words to respect the spirit when you make an adaptation of a novel. Alejandro, what do you think? Yes, I believe. I think that you got to keep the root of the story, which launched us into making this film. When I read the book, we just finished Cannibal, and we were looking for a new project. And I remember, and I was dumbfounded when Manolo gave me the novel, because I said, where it's a novel in which you laugh. I said, well, this is a jumping into the void after Cannibal and jumping into a novel which what you laugh, and it's ironic, and it's an enormous journey. And Manolo convinced me. I read it. I thought it was a novel that is easily read and that you enjoy reading it, but it deals with issues that are very complex and invite you sometimes to, when you get into that territory in the field of creation, you may be pedantic in doing it in a film. And Manolo said, no, we've got to work upon this in a very ironic way, with a lot of irony. That we have to promote more that irony that appears in the novel. And I think Manolo, coming from the film Cannibal, and being frank, he had the balls to get into a project like this, because it was coming out of his comfort circle. Cannibal, we had a good critique when we came, good critic. The critics treated us well when we were here. But with Manolo, it's a new territory. Manolo doesn't like to repeat things, and that for me as a scriptwriter, it's a luxury. He wants to write with me, films with me. I can explore territories that I would never have gotten involved in either. Hi. I'm over here. Hi. I wanted to ask the three writers, Mr. Cercas, you're here, and then you give them the blessing that they can turn your novel into a film. It's a novel that wasn't that hard, but it's incredible that an author is present in the presentation of a film. Yes, of course, I said, and it's a feeling that I would like you to talk about, that is, say, what is, explain your presence or your, and then the film overwhelmed me. I would never receive a script writing class from any of you three. I'm not too sure whether you teach any lessons, but I would never go to one of your classes. And precisely, I've got the feeling is that the authors always believe that other people are ridiculous, the others are ridiculous. And that superiority, as a modest spectator, makes you very humble. And that is I'm under the impression that you laugh at yourself, but I feel I'm humiliated. They're smart and I'm not. And this is to see what's the position of the author, because as things have been changed, there's always a certain superiority. And to Mr. Cercas, how do you feel by being here today as the author? I'm not too sure whether the question is, you're referring to what an author does, why is an author at a film festival, or what does an author does in the presentation of a film based upon his book? Because I'm not too sure whether you're insinuating that all authors and writers, we've written El Quixote, and we've got a minimally, Orson Welles has to direct it, and we're never happy about that. No, that's saying, you explain. I'm not too sure whether that's your answer. No, seriously, I feel very well. I feel very good being here. I'm going to say something. I must say that when Manuel and Jose came, we had dinner in Madrid for the first time when we met, and they talked to me about making this film. The first thing after the dinner, I said, this guy's crazy. I said it completely seriously. I said, oh, that's madness. Why? Well, first of all, it's a book that I wrote when I was 23 years old. It's the first book that I wrote, and under very special circumstances, because I just finished my university degree, I finished my military service, I didn't have a dime, I didn't know anyone. My father gave me some money that I never returned to him. Very special circumstances. I never thought that this book was going to be published because I didn't know anyone in the editing world or the publishing world. And 30 years later, all of a sudden, this guy comes along and says he wants to make a film of it. And then my mother read it, and some of my sisters, I think, read it when it was published. I think I sold about 3 or 4 books. But then it's been re-edited, it's been translated into many languages. So 30 years later, Manuel comes up and he says, I want to make a film. And I thought it was crazy, it was madness. And I thought, it may be a project of some nature, but it will never come to be. And so movie making is very difficult. I know what things are like. To make a film is very tough. But Something occurred to me, and that's what the scriptwriter said before, and he's completely right. It's a film which is completely different to Cannibal and the other films that Manuel has directed. I've only seen Cannibal, and I thought Cannibal had that it says. So I said, I understand now why he's going to make this film. I don't know whether I've told you this. So because Cannibal was talking about a cannibal, a guy that ate people physically, but this film talks about how authors devour everything that we have. We eat everything that we have in our surrounding area and do barbaric things, just like the protagonist of the film, or the novel, better said, does in order to do what we want to do. Because I agree with what Manuel says, and Manuel is going to agree with what I say, I think, I hope, anyway. Yes, because it's satire. We're laughing, the novel and the film, you're laughing at a guy who wants to be an author, a writer, and he's ridiculous, and it's great for people to laugh at it because it's satire, but at the same time in that character, if you'll allow me, there's almost heroic dignity. The guy wants to be an author, a writer, whatever, and he's prepared to go over anything and do anything, and that's vocation, not to be successful, a literary success or to become a professor, no, because he wants to be a writer, and he wants it above anything, and he'll do anything to do so, and he's a cannibal in that respect, and so therefore in that respect, and I want to finish, a novel, this is going to sound obvious, but I want to say something else, but a novel is not better or worse because someone makes a film of it. Is simply the person that makes a film is a really good director like Manuel, who's got his own world and his vision of the world. The thing is that he sees in that book something that's important for him, that forms part of his makeup and his world and the way he sees things. So that's what I think happened. Manuel saw something that belonged to him, that was inside him. Then the way he thinks, he sees things. Apart from that, I'm very happy to be here in San Sebastian. What can I say? Alejandro? Yes. I teach at the University of Madrid, and I think there's some students of mine, and I think they like me. I teach script writing. I don't treat people the way the guy does in the film. Yes, I've also been a teacher for script writing in several schools, and I treated my students that way. No. Obviously, for example, the character of the teacher, the professor who teaches writing, I try to place him in a position in the film in which that character being very tough, at the end of the day, he's a very poor guy anyway. He's a poor old soul, because Antonio de la Torre is teaching at a type of high school, 8 or 9, a lady, a couple of elderly people, other people. He wants to be brilliant and teach and say those marvelous phrases that are true, and I could probably say that about David Mamet, but being placed like on a pedestal and talking about absolute truths, if you take a step back, they sound a bit ridiculous. So perhaps I have a vision which is a little perverse of the egoism of what authors are and writers are, and also a certain amount of evil that they may have. But there's also a side, because I also feel very, very proud and very fortunate to do what I do. I make films, and I love cinema and films, and that's what I do, and I do everything I can. That's what I know how to do, and what I love to do. And I always say, when I started as an assistant director with Felipe Vega, my great master, when I worked with him in the first film, I said, this is a place where I love to be. So therefore, in that sense, I feel like the character in the film and in the novel who's prepared to do whatever to continue to do what he likes to do and loves to do. Beyond receiving awards and circumstances, what's important at the end of the day, and what I want being here today is to have the opportunity of making another film. And I say that seriously, and I say that in earnest. That is to say, this all makes sense. If someone's listening to me and I end up giving me money to make another film. And that process from the outside might sound a bit naive, might sound ridiculous as well, but that's our day-to-day. The film tries to talk about all of those different layers in a way, not a solemn way, but the depth charge that it has is quite serious at the end of the day. Yes, I would like to ask Javier Cercas, in the film, and I imagine in the novel, it talks about the omnipotence of the creator and the intellectual. I would like to ask you, was that the sin of Spanish intellectuals? They're a bit omnipotent vis-a-vis society. And you as a writer, you signed a manifesto a few days back vis-a-vis the referendum in Catalonia. Coixet also signed it, and he said that after that manifest, they were saying who they were, the people that had signed this manifesto. These days that we're going through a lot of tension. I understand your question. I understand that you asked about this issue, but also I understand I prefer to talk about the film, because these people have spent many years working, the truth be said, and they've done an enormous amount of effort, placed an enormous amount of effort to now to talk about something else, which is completely different. No, I'm just concerned about this issue there, as is natural, like everyone is. But today, I'm in San Sebastian, and I told Manuel, and I feel optimistic. Things will get better. We'll fix. There's a solution at the end of the day. We have to fix it. Because history tells us when you get involved in these issues in Spain, in particular, we know it very well, and they ended up turning out bad, and we don't have the right for it to turn out bad. That's all I want to say. So therefore, as I want to talk about the film, I'm going to praise the film, because here someone has said the novel was a very literary novel. I think you're exactly right. One of the virtues of Manuel's film is it turns a very literary novel in a film which is very cinematographic. And that's the extraordinary merit to it. I'm not too sure whether I told you there's Azcona. Ravel Azcona said, cinema can't be beaten in the superficial. That's marvelous. Superficial, he didn't mean it in the despective sense. He said, in cinema, everything's got to appear on the surface of the screen. You've just got to see it, watch it. But the novel works completely different. There's a novel where things occur in your mind, in your head. Because the novel can do this in the mind. It's claustrophobic in that sense. What does Manuel and Alejandro, what have they done? Well, they draw out those things from inside his head and show it on the screen, and I believe that's fantastic. To make visible what the novel is, what's invisible in the novel. I think in this novel, Woody Allen said something which is marvelous about Bergman, and the first time I thought of, I love Bergman, for example, and Woody Allen too, but he talked about the sense, every take, every shot, every scene, the faces and the bodies of the people, all of the images at the beginning, which is extraordinary beginning, Seville in summer, and a penguin in the middle of the screen. That's the sense of spectacle, and it's envious the way he've achieved it. I think it's fantastic, and it's very difficult coming from a novel which was almost so claustrophobic and so from the inside. That's praise. I can praise him in many other ways as well. Next question, please. Hi, good morning. This is a question for the director. We would like to know, it seemed to us that in the first film, well, in your previous film, Cannibal, you the story was about a psychopath that slowly but surely almost became human. And this is back to front, basically. It's almost a normal, regular type guy who slowly but surely gets into, almost becomes a psychopath. And I would like to know whether those characters that are common in cinema, but not so much in those protagonists, you put them in the center as the main character of your films. Well, it's a way of seeing things. Yes, I think that's quite good. There are many things that he does unconsciously. There's no point of view here. I think that we've got to try, in my case, I try to avoid as much as possible excessively being irrational. And that's to say, intuition at the end of the day, what we call intuition, is what we've learnt and which flows unconsciously, I believe. Why are the characters? Why these characters? Well, because there's always been a side, and as films are made, for example, the more conventional type films, the Hollywood-type films, for example, we always talk about the empathy with the character, the hero, for example, and I follow the character, and I understand the character, and he carries out heroic event, he changes the character, he's great, he'll learn a lot, he doesn't like his wife, but then at the end of the film he loves his wife, and then the music accompanies it. That's what we call empathy with the character, the identification with the character. And at the end of the day, the character ends up being a beautiful, tall, handsome, great, good-looking, you know. But the truth is, that's never the interest. That aspect of the characters and what they do is to be complacent with the character. With the audience, no, I'm sorry. It's not that I can't or want to do it at a given moment. What I am interested in those characters is to make the audience feel uncomfortable, where it's difficult to be empathic with the character. At the same time, it's easy to understand them, nevertheless, because there's something about them in each and every one of us. And even in Cannibal, when Alejandro and I wrote the script, we said, well, careful, we want the spectator to be too empathic at this moment with the character. Let's rescue scenes that something in them to tell the spectators and the audience, hey, don't be empathic with this character. But if you're empathic, that's your problem. But this is how this guy is. I'm not fooling you. It's very easy to manipulate the audience and the spectators, and to make them feel empathic with the idea of being a hero, because everyone wants to get in a place and we want everything to be beautiful, and like as if in Disneyland, as if it were a fairy tale. But in our the way we do is we want to question all of this and question ourselves and ask ourselves questions, because we don't believe in the character. I believe more in characters who are true characters, those that are contradictory, like Javier's character or a character that Maria plays, or those characters that are one thing and they want to be something else, but they're not really who they want to be. Alejandro, I'm not too sure whether after this great speech that I give you, no, you did well. Next question, please. Hi, congratulations to the entire crew and cast. After seeing the film, I've got a lot. I want to read the novel, because some things that you read the book and then you want to see the film. Well, vice versa. Now I saw the film, now I want to read the novel. And what happened to me in the last 10 minutes of the film, I thought of many endings, different endings, but the one that happens is the one that I least was thinking of. Manuel, were there many possible endings of the film? How was that process of saying, well, okay, let's keep this end? I'm not too sure whether that's the true ending of the book or the novel. How did you address that, the ending of the film? The ending is the same as in the novel. Well, no, the jail doesn't. No, the jail doesn't appear. And the other thing, the immigrants fool him, yes. That is in the book. The end of the book is not cinematographic, because it's meta-literary, that it goes around in circles, and we shouldn't do that in films. And I like what you've said about, I wrote a prologue for David Trevas of Soldiers in Salamina, and it talks about betrayal. And it said, to be loyal to a novel, you've got to betray it if you want to make a film of it, because something which is very simple, it might sound obvious, but allow me, if a film's a film and a book's a book, and languages, both languages are different, so therefore you've got to step back from it. The worst thing is you want a film that follows exactly what the novel does. For example, that can't be a good film because the language is completely different, so therefore the ending was not. But it is at the same time, if you catch what I'm saying. It's a translation, shall we say, of the ending of the book. They're not identical. I'm not too sure what to say. As regards to the immigrant couple turning things around, that appears in the novel, and they fool the main character. My work as a scriptwriter and a director, I was concerned about that the audience seeing that coming already, but we want it to happen when it happens to be coherent. When you discover it, you go, oh, of course, but I didn't realize until now. And that moment of the film. What's very important here is that we address two essential things, apart from many others, and that was at what moment the couple, that it has to be in the subtext, the couple of immigrants, Diana and Dinoch, they discover they're being used. Who are the puppets that they're being manipulated by, and what's their reaction? And secondly, that the story the love story or the supposed seduction or being between one or the other, between one man or the other that Adriana has, hides and takes the audience somewhere else. So how's it going to end up being a romantic film between those two? And that's when we're fooling you, because we're leaving the little steps, literal little steps, to what's going to happen later. And it readdresses the character of Adriana and makes you think about the character of Tenoch, and it makes you readdress each of the characters. I don't know if you want to say anything, Adriana? Next question, please. Hi. Congratulations above all, because I had a great time watching the film. And I would like to ask the actors, how did you get together to get prepared? Because the film, it's under there's two characters, there's the main character and all the others. So therefore you didn't have to read a script, but you had to come to an agreement to base anything upon the main character, or how did that work? Well, the truth, we didn't organize with ourselves. We let ourselves go with the flow by the author, Manuel. Manuel is a great actor-director. And I personally, the experience and the feeling that I've had with him, it was a journey, it was an experience, and also he has played a lot with us, very much. For me, it's been an experience. Well, look, for example, preparing a film that has nothing to do with what the film is per se, and I think that has an enormous value as a director, because I had a great time. I've learned a lot. I thought that I knew who my character was, but Manuel, you never stop surprising you, because you never know who the character is. It was a marvelous experience to work with him and to organize. He organized everything, and we were quite fortunate for this. I'm going to talk now. Well, what Maria surprises me, we've not talked about, but that happened to me also, to see the film and all of a sudden it was saying, oh, he fooled me as well. So therefore, and it's the first time that it's happened to me, that during the shooting of the films, there are moments outside of being at home in Seville, and all of a sudden I'm in the kitchen, I'm going, Enrique and the kids are coming, and it's as if, you're not Irene, you're Adriana. That's my name. And to surprise myself of things that I've seen. And as regards to the work that he did with us, from the outset, from the first moment, Manuel, for example, with Tenoch and me, 2 months earlier, more or less 2 months before the shooting of the film, because we had been chosen for the cast and we were waiting to turn up. He went to Mexico for a weekend just to meet us and to start to work with Tenoch and myself of the precedents of the characters those 10 years before, going to live in Seville as the characters live. And then he left that in our minds, working and thinking about what the character was going to be like. And then it creates an atmosphere between the actors from the first reading, in which the characters just when they say hello to each other, and a dog barks and Manuel barks, a truck goes by, and Tenoch said, listen, try to tell him, try to say no to him. And so there, he involves you in such a way that, so that you jump into the void, and he also creates a great link, an alliance and an atmosphere amongst the actors where there's no way that you're not completely involved. We've said it often. Manuel's set is like a sacred place, for example, where you can see or hear a pin drop, and that for acting and for the actor's work is of utmost importance, because it involves everyone in the same way, and that you know that what you're going to give, which is absolutely everything, is also going to be given by the character who's with you. And we want to thank him very much for helping us with that. Thank you, Adelfa. Yes. Hi. I remember that first reading that you ended up crying, and everyone ended up reading it. It was something which was incredible. We were sitting there, and we closed the script, and Manuel started to cry. And I had him in front of me, and I started to cry as well because it moved me. It was emotional. I was very happy. Manuel hugs you before you do a scene, and he plays a lot, and he tells you, and he says, action, and comes along, and he says into your ear something barbaric that I can't even repeat now, because so that everything that you're going to do can be new. We're in a sequence, Javier and I are in a sequence, and he comes cry like a little dog between our legs, and you've got to try to overcome that, how bothersome he is at times. But this is something that I've never seen before. And so, and I opened a door, and all of a sudden Javier was there with no pants on and everything, showing everything, bearing his all. And of course, he says, action. And I think it's all new. It's all, and it's true. Everything you do looks real. And so there I'm very happy of having, bearing my soul and being in the, because you've got to leave your soul completely naked for a director in order to allow. I got physically undressed. My mother is going to feel very. When she sees me with my balls my testicles on the table because of and he's to blame, this director. I have never enjoyed myself so much in the creative process, preparing a character as I have in this film. It's been a genuine, almost a kid's game, without worrying about the result at the end of the day. We were spying on each other, we were doing crazy stuff, and that's how the film and the shoot of the process of the film was. And what Adriana says, it tells him nothing. Try to say no to him. When his work is almost like Stanislavski, he goes to Seville a year before shooting, to breathe and to walk around the streets or where the characters are going to walk around, to sit in the same places where the characters sit down to talk, to live from the author, the life of the characters, to imagine them, to observe them in his mind. And I would highlight the great passion and the honesty of Martín Cuenca's films, which is something in our films. There are great filmmakers, but this is something that has overwhelmed me, and the experience has been very enriching for me as an actor. Last question, please. Quite specifically, a question for Javier, Adelfa, and José Luis. Javier, I'm not too sure. There's a succession of great films that you've been in, but I'm not too sure whether you believe this is the most exposed film that you've been in. Adelfa, and as I said, an opportunity. It's a great opportunity for you. I don't know whether you believe this could happen to you. Had you thought that this was going to be impossible for you in your career to have an opportunity like this, or whether do you believe that it's never too late? And José Luis, you made the soundtrack, but in the country, but never to a film. You never had the opportunity before. You never interested in that. And the truth is, I never made a music for a soundtrack for a film, and I was very. I thought it was great that I was like, Manuel was not too sure whether I was going to say yes, because I'd never done so. And all of a sudden, someone told me that there was something behind this, there was something very serious. And all of a sudden, I thought, well, let's see what it is. And as of the moment I saw the script, I was touring America, and I lost a lot of siestas, because I like to have a siesta, to read the script, and I read it from top to bottom. And it didn't, what I wrote in the soundtrack was completely different to what I read in the script. But there's something about the character, the main character, that I felt identified with when he was asking for inspiration to write something, because the inspiration didn't come to him, and I was wanting to write something that didn't come to him. And then you look at the screen, you look at yourself in the mirror and you scream, and that's what happens. And that's why I felt very identified with when you start with a white page, and what do I write and how do I tell the story? And on the other hand, the character is so varied, so black and white, and all of a sudden, and then and the things that you believe are logic ended up not being very logical. So it's just like songs. Apart from, they're logic and illogical at the same time, but they have moments in which life can happen. It has 1,000 colors, different types, depending upon how you want to live them, and depending upon how how you perceive from the actor that all of a sudden he's happy, and all of a sudden he's very sad because he can't find what to do to write what he wants to write, and at the end he uses something which is very important when one's writing something, for it to be credible, and that is to say simple, is to look upon what human beings are like and reflect their stories, the true stories. When I write, I don't invent anything at all. There's always a starting point, which are people's lives that are very close to me, to walk down the street to see how people live, to what people think of, or how a film receives its critics. But I'm not a singer. I'm a storyteller. I think the story was very exciting, serious, and it's been an enormous privilege for me to work for Manuel and these fantastic actors. That I'm very glad. I loved the film, and it was great to write those songs for them. Thank you. What you said is very beautiful. It's never too late. I'm a person who's very positive, and I'm always waiting for something to come into your hands like this. For me, it was a challenge, and it's also a gift that you don't expect. But, the sun always comes up, and a new day starts, and something beautiful is going to happen. And there's something in here that tells me this is going to be marvelous. And this is a gift and a present for me. Well, I'm not too sure it's my most exposed, shall we say, work, but I was very afraid because it was an enormous amount of responsibility with a director who I admire from remember his first film, and I was very lost when, for example, chaos, order, and chaos at the beginning. On my hand, there was a lot of chaos. I just had a lot of information. I didn't know how to get into it. I organized things at home, and then all of a sudden I went to shoot the film, and all of a sudden he was in charge of driving me crazy once again. But I'm very, very happy of the result. Thank you very much to all of you, and good luck to all of you.